right, welcome back to the Kansas City Market Pulse, where we're bringing you market insights, leadership stories, and the bold moves shaping commercial real estate across the Midwest. Today's guest is someone who embodies that boldness in business and in life. I get the pleasure of calling him a good friend and mentor of myself as well, Chuck Cuda. Chuck, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Fantastic. Chuck is the founder of Opus Commercial Real Estate, a firm that's completed over $300 million in transaction, is projected to exceed $80 million in 2025 alone. That's a good year. He's also the CEO of Elevation Cannabis, leading expansion across 3 states and 25 licenses. But Chuck's story goes deeper. Chuck's a builder. He's a coach, and he's a man of faith. His philanthropic work has raised over $3 million through the Opus Charitable Foundation. And now he's the author of Ego Strength, a book about risk, resilience, and rebuilding from rock bottom. Chuck, welcome again to the show. Man, it's good to see you. I'm so excited to hear about your book, and we're going to get right into it if that's okay, man. I love the beginning of this book, and we're going to talk about these collision moments. Okay, so one of the quotes that really stuck out to me, page 30: pain is the only price that we pay for growth. If you avoid it, you're going to remain the same. That's page 30. Man, you opened the book about a rock bottom moment. Take us into that collision. What happened and what changed after that?
Yeah, so that opening of the book, I got sent to prison for refusing to testify in a grand jury investigation. And obviously that's never a place you envision waking up one morning, especially when you have dreams of being an entrepreneur and leader in the community. But what that did was, it really inspired change.
Yeah.
The first 6-8 weeks in there, I still was pointing the finger at other people. Could it have been their fault? Could it have been their fault? But it wasn't until Thanksgiving where I truly hit rock bottom, not spending Thanksgiving with my family on 23-hour lockdown. And that was really eating a bologna sandwich. And I said, man, I really need to make change, and not just change in me, but change that could inspire others.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I mean, I think that like a lot of people probably hear that and they're like, wow, like Chuck, being willing to share that and talk about that openly is not an easy thing to do. But 2, I mean, what does it mean for you to actually own those mistakes? Like I'm a big, but I'm a big Jocko Willink extreme ownership guy, right? Yeah. If I'm correct, Chuck, you're not like a reader exactly like I am, right? You know me, I'm always kind of putting these books out there and reading and doing all this stuff. I know you read, but like I'm obsessed with a few individuals and I go really, really deep. So I've kind of tried to embody this thought process and this framework of extreme ownership. But man, I mean, that moment right there was that. So what does that mean to you to like own your mistakes with brutal honesty? Like how do you even go about trying to teach someone like your children, right? Or someone like, that might be sitting there, they may be into some struggling, right now, but like, how do you help them through that?
100%. I mean, at a young age, I teach my kids, hey, failure is part of life.
Yeah.
Whether it be in youth sports, when you're 5 years old, 6 years old, all the way up, till the time you start dating, you're not always going to get the girl. You're not always going to get a hit.
Yeah.
Failure is part of life, but it's what you do after that failure that is really what's going to, mold you as a person that you want to become. And then failure is everywhere. So I tell them all the time, don't put yourself in a position to fail. Even if you think you're doing everything right, you're still going to fail. So try and limit the exposure that you have and mitigate your risk by not making bad decisions.
Yeah.
You're going to fail enough when you're making good decisions.
Yeah. And I always try to tell my kids that like failure is just learning another way not to do something. Right. Like, I mean, I didn't have a father like in my life telling me, hey, avoid this or don't do that. But I did have some really great mentors as other my friends' dads watching what was going on in my life, right? But like I failed a lot. I still fail a lot. I think a lot of people are scared of that failure. But being able to create this confidence, right? You talk about betting on yourself. So like, what does that look like when the stakes are high, but maybe you haven't been there or done that before? I mean, Chuck, you were sitting in a prison cell, right? And
Yeah.
you were able to bet on yourself. And like, there's surely there, I mean, there had to be, the confidence had to come from somewhere. But like, if somebody's out there sitting there listening to this and they're like, holy cow, okay, so I can do this, but like, how do you build that confidence?
Well, it's like it's mindset. It's like chapter 3 starts. Henry Ford, whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right.
That's right.
And I think that if people are afraid to fail, they're never going to take the risks that they want to take to succeed. So, when I got out of prison, I knew that I wanted a job where the sky was the limit. That's always how I was, I had that cultivated mindset where I wanted to make as much money as possible. So when I got offered a position to, be a property manager, and I said no, my wife was like, "What are you doing? We need money." And I said, "Anna Marie, I'll work 120 hours a week to make ends meet so that we could have some money. But I've got to do this because this is what I want to do, and this is what I was born to do, and this is the competition that I want to have, and I want to bet on myself, and I want to grow more beyond just a 9 to 5."
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have such a similar path. When I was fired from my last job, it was like, I'm done, any caps or anything like that. There's just something that's, I think, wired within some individuals, that competitiveness and that fire, right? But, like I mentioned, I do a lot of reading, and you've kind of come up with I'm going to say you've kind of coined a new term here, ego strength. So let's just start by defining, for you and the listeners here, what is ego strength? What does that mean?
Yeah, it is, taking the proverbial look in the mirror and saying, you're the one that could change this. You're the one that could make a difference in yourself, and owning your mistakes and owning your life and starting to live a life by design, as opposed to sitting back and saying, "Oh, poor me." So it's, just about gaining the confidence, the structure, the drive, the motivation to look that guy in the mirror and say, you control your narrative, not anybody else.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, you guys that aren't seeing this on the screen, you can check out Ego Strength. It's available now on Amazon. Please do go check out the book. I got an early release. Don't tell anybody. Actually, I just told everybody. But what I found really interesting was, because I had some airplane time to get into this, was, Ego Strength is the blend of resilience, humility, and conviction. And wow, I think those 3 pillars really say it right there. It's not egotism, right? It's the inner strength to face that truth and evolve, right? So out of those 3 pillars, resilience, humility, and conviction, Chuck, which one do you think personally you either struggle with the most, or which one comes more naturally to you?
I would say humility comes more naturally to me. People don't realize it, but if you ask my employees, I mean, the ability to move on and own my mistakes and say, okay, what could we have done differently? And I never point the finger at any of them if something doesn't work. It's always, what did I miss? I could have done something better, and just having the humility to say, this didn't work. Let's make a change. Let's pivot. Let's move quickly to get back on a new path.
Yeah. And what I took away from it was, there's like evolutions of Chuck throughout this book that you get to kind of read and you get to learn about. And I don't know, I've known you 7-8 years. We've done a lot of business together, and I've been able to see this, right? This evolution. And then I start, writing and thinking on my Remarkable tablet on the plane about, well, man, what evolution am I going through right now? And I realized that I read something here recently that said, legitimately, like, the cells in your body are regenerating and evolving on a regular basis. So like, who you are today is not who you were 5 or 10 years ago. However, if you don't reprogram the mind, then you stay the same, right? And I see this a lot in commercial real estate, right? Ego shows up often in posturing and making sure that people know what you've done and how you've done it and all of that. But I can say firsthand that any dealings with you have not been that way. But I think that one question I had when I was thinking about this is, how do you maintain ego strength in those tough negotiations and big deals, and when you start having some success, right? Like how do you keep that?
Well, you always put your client ahead of yourself, for one. And then two, always try to take the emotion and ego out of the transaction itself. So, I mean, you just got to be cognizant of it. That's the mindset side where, you're always going to do what's best for your client and for the transaction itself without over levering your position to where the other broker then brings in his ego and starts to feel like he's slighted or you're overstepping. So it's really, it's got to be harmonious. I mean, the transaction has to be, you have to walk the broker down the path that you want to go to get the best deal for your client.
Yeah. I'm going to pull a quote here from page 50. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less and others more clearly. I think that what you've done over your career still do is, and I think this is a lost art, but especially with artificial intelligence and technology, man, I think the next wave of like skill set is like truly being able to think clearly, right? And that quote just hit it right there. I mean, it's not thinking of yourself less, it's thinking of others more clearly. Okay, well, we got our first listener question in, and this one was sent in to me. So, you've led cannabis, and we'll get into that too, and commercial real estate companies. But like, when do you know when you should push and when do you pause? Like, how are you calibrating how hard to go versus pausing and calibrating that risk?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think, on the commercial real estate side, I never really did pause. There was always more deals out there. You just have to work harder to find them. In the cannabis side, the regulatory, limitations and oversight has caused us to pause, pivot, restructure, pause, pivot, restructure. So, I mean, I think a lot of it is based on, how quickly you can move in the right direction versus are these quick moves going to be detrimental to the company itself? So, in real estate, it's a tangible asset, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have 600 employees to worry about. You could go find the deal that you've underwritten. You're confident in its ability to perform and your ability to either lease it up if it's value add or just maintain the tenant base. So in real estate, I've never really paused, and I don't see a pause coming. It's just about finding the right deals. Don't force a transaction just because you don't want to pause, but then on the business side, there's a lot more to think about.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And I appreciate that because I'm not necessarily in the business side per se. I am in some regards, but I'm really focused on the commercial real estate side. And that's because I'm trying to, like what you said earlier, was conviction, right? I use the word intentionality a lot. How can I be intentional with my time? And so we're gonna kind of shift over to a new segment here, going from transactional to transformational, right? And here's a fantastic quote from page 45. Those with ego strength don't demand the world to be different. They change themselves first. That hit hard when I read that because you've built multiple businesses. And what I have struggled with in the past is how do you evolve from a top performer to a purpose-driven leader? And when do you actually take that evolution? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that because selfishly, that is something I've wanted. I've asked you that personally, but I want everybody to kind of hear that. So, like, how do you go from high performer to purpose-driven leader?
Well, I mean, again, it's all about mindset. I had to make changes when we have 4 kids, and each kid needs to be parented differently to motivate them, different motivating factors, and then once you start to take over and you're now trying to lead multiple personalities, it's like I say in the book, don't treat people the way that you want to be treated. As a high functioning, competitive individual like yourself and myself, Logan, we can move on. We're thick skinned. If someone treats us poorly, it is what it is. We're going to move on. We're going to forgive. We're going to forget. We're going to be friends and buddies tomorrow. But when you start to manage different personalities, you really need to start to make those changes and realize that you need to treat them how they want to be treated to maximize them and get the best version of themselves. So, I think it was, wanting to constantly improve my performance, doing emotional intelligence testing, really understand what makes certain people go, as opposed, because not everyone's Chuck, not everyone's Logan,
Yeah. Most definitely. Yeah. And I mean, you've called pain the currency of growth. I think a lot of people, at least in the real estate industry right now, feel like this could be or has been a really tough season, right? I mean, and we both know real estate business, cyclical scenarios, right? And how to ride those cycles the right way. Well, you've been through a decent amount of these cycles now in multiple businesses. So, for leaders or performers, maybe they're in a tough season right now. What is your advice? How do you kind of make it through the tough seasons that they may be feeling right now or could be coming? Because, if we're watching the news on a regular basis, many people are like, my goodness, they get caught up in that stuff really, really fast. And it's a slippery slope, right? So what's your advice for people in tough seasons to navigate these choppy waters?
I mean, work harder. You've got the economists, you've got the forecasters, you've got everybody saying things are going to get tough. So 85-90% of the people, you know what they're going to do? They're going to curl up in the ball and they're going to take the beating. It's the people who say, you know what, I'm going to work harder. I'm going to get to the office earlier. I'm going to start looking at different avenues, whether it be, in 2010, 2011, when I first got out, REO real estate was huge back then. I did a lot of dispositions for banks. Find different avenues to get your listings, to make your deals, close your transactions. There's going to be a way if you have the will.
Yes, absolutely. Keep the questions coming in. Yes, we will get to all of them. I'm keeping track of them. So is Katie. We've got a list of these questions. I have so many questions I want to selfishly get through with Chuck, but just keep them coming. I'm receiving them. So we've got them all here. So just so everybody, if you're just now tuning in, Ego Strength is now available live. Go check it out on Amazon. It's a fantastic read. It's all about owning your story, leading with purpose, and scaling with integrity. Okay, so real quick, before we go on to our next segment, which is going to be highly focused on just real estate in general, what's the legacy that you want Opus, your real estate company, to leave in Kansas City and in beyond, Chuck?
Well, I think it's more than just Opus. It's everything that I touch. I want people to feel that I led properly. I always put my clients above myself. I always put my employees above myself. And, I want to cultivate leaders that can now expand, my reach and leave behind a lasting legacy of doing the right thing, doing more for the community, and really, really growing that by building leaders that have the same mindset as me and spidering that out.
The harder you work, the luckier you get, right? And your commercial real estate journey, is a grand one, right? So let's talk a little bit about kind of your most memorable commercial real estate deal of your career and maybe why it was so memorable. Maybe if you could even put your finger on one.
Yeah. Yeah, I will tell you, the one that really hits home for me was the redevelopment of Country Club Shops. It was a 28 or 30,000 square foot building over on Vivian Road. And that was important to me for a handful of reasons. When I was a kid, my grandfather used to take me there. There was an old apple market in that building, and he would take me there on Sundays to get fresh baked bread. I remember Tom Kalia owned the place, and I would, get the wafers out of the thing, and he'd walk around eating them. He didn't really care. I got my Letterman's jacket at the apparel store that was in that building. We stored a Pizza Hut that was in that building. And then just to see it sit vacant for years and years and years before I bought it, did a redevelopment there. And really, that was a first deal that was high value where I really needed to earn the bank's trust, right? So total spec, redevelopment. I had a vision in my mind where I wanted Family Dollar and I wanted another bookend tenant and then infill the middle with neighborhood retail. And to see it all come together, and years later, I've got Family Dollar on the end where Apple Market used to be. And we've got a pet store on the other end and then infill the tenants. To see it all come together, that's probably the most memorable deal for me, just because it had so much so much other meaning than just making money. You know, and I won the Good Neighbor of the Year award, Northland Neighborhoods Inc. for that project, for the redevelopment.
It was a beautiful project, and if I'm remembering correctly, did I help you sell that deal or brought a buyer?
You were the broker on the other side of that transaction.
Here we go. See,
yeah,
that's
another reason why I'm so great. Great broker on the other side.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, Joe Pringer's showing up. Says Chuck speaks from experience when it comes to work ethic and the amount of time and discipline that it takes to succeed. So, Joe, thanks for the comment. Very much appreciate you being here, my friend. Thank you for that. Hey, so what about maybe a deal that you passed on and you still think about? And I'll kind of give an anecdote here. I was in 2017 and 2018 representing a bunch of real estate funds kind of coming into Kansas City, and they were buying real estate, and they stopped. And then the funds continued to purchase, and the numbers weren't really making sense. But 5, 6, 7 years later, they see they had seen some sort of trend on the single family home side. Now they all own 200, 300 homes that people want to own, and they're probably doing really well, right? And so I was like, how are they making this make sense? Well, they saw some trends and they made it happen. So is there any deal that you passed on that you still think about, Chuck?
I'll be honest. For me, the ones that I pass on are like the ones that I transact. I'm just as good as my next deal. So I just move on. I just move on to the next deal. Really don't think twice about them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good mentality. I had a mentor tell me one time that, Logan, real estate deals are kind of like the city bus. If you're in the right place and the right time, there's another one every 10 minutes, right? You just got to be willing to do that, right? Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. Okay. Joe's also saying, hey, let's ask Chuck, what's the one deal project that you wish you wouldn't have done and some lessons learned? Great question, Joe. Great question.
That is a good question. I'll be honest. I would say it's probably the Grand Royale in Gladstone. First and foremost, it was a project that we really knew nothing about. It was a full continuum of care, resident care facility, and we needed to go to the state to get certificates of need for the assisted living and skilled side. We bought the property right, but what we didn't realize when we bought it was that there was about 25 homeless people living in it. Mm-hmm. So we needed to vacate the homeless. Police ended up spending a lot of time there. We got robbed during the redevelopment. We ended up getting the CONs, picked the wrong operator out of Tennessee to run the project. It was a 3-4 year nightmare before we actually started to stabilize the project.
Yeah.
Over budget, one of those.
And just so everybody knows, I was on that deal too on the other side. So, hey, good and bad over here. We're going to own it. That's the ego strength that we're talking about.
That one didn't turn out as well for me as the others.
Yeah, exactly. We're all going to have those, right? I have those same exact kind of examples in my own career. This is a fantastic question. I can't put it up on the screen, but I think it's very timely. If you had 30 seconds to coach either a new broker or an investor entering the field today, what would you tell them?
I would tell the new broker that you have to be intentional. Like you said earlier, you have to structure your day with the goals and the results that you want to achieve, and that the persistence is what pays off. Cultivate the relationship. Okay, because any sales is totally relational. And don't take the old fake it till you make it as buying a Mercedes Benz. Take the fake it till you make it as gaining the knowledge, portraying the confidence and the experience to fake your ability without your transactional history before you actually have the transactional history to prove. So that's the 30-second pitch. If I have more time, I can keep going.
Absolutely. No, that's great. That's fantastic. And I think that my advice is, the quicker you can get around people like Chuck, people doing real estate deals that have been there and done that and spending time, you catch what you're close to. And if you can get close to that and learn and see the work ethic, see the discipline and the intentionality, rooting that is so important in the fundamentals. Bob Knackel is the most successful commercial real estate broker in New York City of all time, right? Sold his brokerage for $100 million to Cushman and Wakefield. And he said, this business is not hard. It's simple, but it is not easy. Forcing yourself to do the same thing, not worrying about where the market is, still trying to add value on a regular basis every single day. That's really tough, right? That's really, really hard. Okay. Fantastic. So we're moving on to the book, The Man and the Mission. This is going to be an awesome segment here. Okay. So when identity is rooted in truth, not applause, we find freedom to lead without fear. Wow. I wrote that down in my journal, and I have a section in my journal that says, most foundational and or inspiring things I heard. And I wrote that quote down. I'm going to say it again. When identity is rooted in truth, not applause, we find freedom to lead without fear. So Chuck, man, what inspired you to write Ego Strength now? Like, why now? Why did you write this book now?
So I actually did a breakfast outlining my entrepreneurial journey. So it was a North Kansas City Connect breakfast. And as I started to, because like I said, I'm only as good as the next deal. I've never really sat down and said, okay, I've done this, and this. And when I was putting that list together, I said, wow, how did I manage to do all of this in such a short period of time while still maintaining work-life balance and leading the companies and the teams that I lead? And when I got done with this breakfast and the speech or kind of walking them down my journey, I had a couple of people come up to me and say, you should write a book. And I was like, I probably should. I think that I could instill some values. Somehow I did it with my real life lessons that could be very impactful and meaningful. Yeah. And it's more about, okay, the legacy side as well. If something, God forbid, I told my son this yesterday. We went to the cemetery after his baseball game to see my grandfather and my uncle. My uncle died when he was 44 years old. I'm creeping up on that. I'm 43 now. Yeah. And you start to think, what do I have to leave behind? I don't want my kids to just think, Dad owned Oak Ridge and it was fun until something happened to him. I want them to really understand the stories and the failures and what it took to get from point A to point B. It's like you said, success is simple. It's just not easy. Yeah, most definitely. And in the book, if someone could only read one chapter, would you point them to one direction in one chapter? And what would that be? And if so, why? I'm just curious. Yeah. Read the whole thing. It's an easy, quick read, guys. I got it done on an airplane, so you can read this book. But if they were only going to read one chapter, what would it be? So I've told a couple people. I told my mom, actually. My mom loves the storytelling part of it. She loves the chapters where I'm telling stories and not necessarily the mindset and the other chapters, leadership. But I would say chapter 4. Yeah. Chapter 4 is kind of my go-to. It's the manifestation, the values inform your goals. If people just say, and I told my 11-year-old this, if you just want to get good at baseball, but it's not something that's relevant to you, you just want to be good because some of your buddies are getting good, but it's not really relevant to you, you're not going to put forth the work and the consistent effort that it takes to achieve that goal. So, I think chapter 4 really speaks to everyone. Yeah. Because it's not everyone wants the same thing in life. And you have to align your goals with your values to make them more obtainable and more achievable. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really, really good. On that front, we got another question in here just messaged over to me. What mindset or habit has surprisingly helped you become a better person outside of business? So not necessarily inside of business, but what's a mindset or habit that has surprisingly helped you become a better person? I speak a lot about morning routines and making sure people's physical and mental health are where they need to be. I'm a habitual person. Like my wife calls me a robot. She's like, Logan does this, Logan does that, same time every day, eats this. But I think that habits and mindsets are so important. So just talk to us a little bit about maybe some of your favorite ones. Yeah. So, naturally, like I said, treating them how they want to be treated, having the cognizance to ask how they're doing and really have consideration. I talk about consideration, a lot in the book, but I think putting others ahead of you, is really the most important thing
Mm.
outside of business. And it's really the most important thing inside of business as well. I mean, it translates. If you put other people ahead of yourself, you're going to get more back in return. And I think that's where the entire, the principle behind the book, ending with legacy, I think that's where it just naturally progressed.
Yeah, most definitely. I love that. And I think that's reminds me of one of the 7 habits of highly effective people, which is think others first. Right. And I mean, I think that's important. Nobody cares how much you know until they know that you've listened to them. Right. And I think you mentioned emotional intelligence earlier. Right.
Yep.
And I've done a lot of reading and studying on my own, emotional intelligence, but and people are like, how did you figure out where to focus in business and in real estate? And I go back to go take Strength Finders tests. So it will tell you the talents that if you cultivate can be cultivated into your strengths, and then overlay that into the business that you're working at. And you'll find some sweet spots, the greatest intersection of your greatest passion and your greatest strength or God-given abilities. And if you can find that and work that, there is no burnout. Everybody around me is so concerned that I'm going to burn out. Right? But like when you, yeah, exactly. But like, let's talk about that, because if you're truly operating in that sweet spot, it doesn't feel like you're burning anything, right? It's not like a grind. Sure, it's a grind on a daily basis, but like you love what you're doing, right? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm passionate about what I do. Transforming growth and people. I mean, that's, to your point, it's not work. We got done with Little League baseball. I was at the field for 8 hours one day, and my youngest son said, "Hey, will you throw me pop-ups?" As much as I wanted to go in and lay on the couch, that's not what I'm about. I'm about making people better. So you know what I did? I went out there and I threw in pop-ups.
Yeah.
So if you're passionate about what you do, it doesn't feel like work, and you should be learning as much every day from the people that you're around. So it's not just about passing down the skills. I try to surround myself with other people where I'm constantly learning, which is energizing to me. Find your passion. That's the best thing you could do.
Yeah. And this notion of passion versus purpose, I actually believe that you're a purpose-driven person more than you are passion. And you probably my definition for purpose is probably your definition for passion. But I kind of mentioned this to some people. If Mother Teresa, who was barely 5 feet, was passionate about playing in the WNBA, regardless of how good and how hard she worked, she probably wasn't going to make that, right? But now she's a Saint Mother Teresa, and she had all this impact, right? Same with me. If I wanted to be an NBA basketball player, I'm 6'2", but I'm, that's a point guard, right? Like I stopped growing. So I was passionate about basketball growing up, but my purpose was to be a football player, and now a husband and a father and a son of God. But at the same time, it's like, this purpose, if you can find this purpose for your life and you intermingle what you're passionate about, then you find this nice little intersection, right? I think that's exactly what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, when you're writing a book, right? Like Chuck, I mean, I have started writing multiple books, right? And I've not authored anything. I post on LinkedIn on a regular basis. I write a lot of blogs and articles and things like that. And truly, yes, artificial intelligence has helped with ideation and things like that, but writing is a skill set. How do you figure out what's going to make it into the book and what's not going to make it into the book, right? Like, how was that process for you?
It was difficult. It was difficult. So it was a 2-year process.
Yeah.
I wrote down all of my businesses that I owned and operated at one point. The story behind it, whether it was a win or a fail. Same thing with the real estate side, and then what I did to really get to where I am and what legacy I wanted to leave behind. So I started with an outline. And then honestly, after about 12 months of writing, I had 97 pages and thought I was done. I went back and I reread the manuscript from start to finish. And I said, we need to start over. So we kept a lot of the content, and I got a developmental editor to help me. We restructured, and then my uncle Frank Brancato, who I mentioned in the acknowledgments, he helped quite a bit. We restructured the outline. got a little more dialed in on what stories are really purposeful and meaningful that could have the impact, that I wanted it to have. So then that's where we went about it, and just, it was only 10 chapters. I probably could have made it 15, but at what point, is it not relevant?
Yeah.
And I wanted it to be a quick, easy read. And I felt that the 10 chapters that we went with were really, really purposeful and meaningful for this project.
Well, I think you nailed it right on the head. One of my favorite quotes also is, we all face setbacks, obstacles, and moments where we question our path, but it's not about avoiding adversity. It's about how we respond to it. Okay. Yeah. And I hear Chuck as the dad in that quote quite a bit. Right. And it's like, I've got a 6-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 1.5-year-old now. Right. And hopefully more on the way. And that is something, if you look at your story, you look at my story, many people's that have been successful or on that path, they don't shy away from that failure, from that adversity, but it's that response. And I remember reading, I think it was Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. And the book talks about, between stimulus and response, there's a story that we tell ourselves. And in that story is where all of the gold or the real learnings come from, right? It's like, what am I going to tell my story? Something just happened to me, right? And I'm just going to get on my high horse just for a second. We all have 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day. Well, it's been proven that about 95% of those thoughts are from the past. And so if we are trying to learn and grow and evolve, then we have to be programming our minds and our thoughts differently, and it can't be living from the past. In Atomic Habits, James Clear talks a lot about this in identity-based habits, right? Yeah. So one question I have is, like, if somebody has gotten into real estate, they've gotten into business, they're working in a startup, right? And they're facing those setbacks, those obstacles, those moments where they're questioning it right now. How do they respond with that confidence, with that ego strength, versus saying, hey, maybe I need to hang this up and I'm not cut out for this? Because that is a critical moment for many, many people. And it's just to say, hey, I'm going to hang it up and I'm going to go get a job somewhere.
Yeah. I think first you have to identify what was the driving force behind that problem or that adversity. Okay. So once you identify the true cause of the problem, then you could then formulate a few different responses as to how you should react and which one's going to put you in the best position for success. So, if someone comes to me and says, hey, I messed this up, why would you do, Jocko, why? What would you do wrong? That maybe created that particular problem. And then what are 3 solutions that you could now lay out in place that's going to mitigate the risk moving forward, or possibly create a solution for that problem? And then why do you think that's going to be a good solution? Maybe ping those 3 solutions off of someone else and see what they believe, or have you been in this position before? Obviously, the more people that you talk through problems with, collaboration is a huge part of success. The more people you can work through your problems or your issues with, the better off you'll be.
100%. I always say that relationships are the crucible to business, to just life in general. But relationships, they do 2 things. They either bring opportunities, and that's fantastic, but maybe more valuable than that is they are able to help solve problems, right? Yeah. And like, that is the game changer, is what you just said, is if you have a couple solutions and you take those to folks that you trust, that have been there, done that before, and get feedback, then you can start to formulate kind of a strategy going forward. Again, that intentionality, that conviction that we've talked about here today, I think is so important.
I mentioned the 60,000 thoughts in the book and the thought journal.
Yes.
What is creating the negative thoughts from, like you said, from point A to point B?
Oh, man. So many good things. We've got to get to our lightning round here. I've got so many other questions, but maybe we'll have to just bring you back on here in a month or so. But let's get to the lightning round. This is going to be fun. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right, man. So what do you think what do your kids think you do for a living?
That's funny. they probably think I just sit up at Oak Ridge every day.
Yeah.
Just hang out and play golf and mini golf. No, the older ones know that I own multiple businesses. My daughter, I don't think she has any idea what I do.
Yeah.
As long as I'm there and I take her on a date once a month and I'm present, I don't think she cares either.
Yeah. Yeah, I always love that question. What do your kids think you do for a living? I don't know. Daddy talks to people, I think he sells buildings. I don't know, but I think he's in real estate. So yeah, that's good. All right. So if Ego Strength had a soundtrack, what song would play over the credits, man? What would the song be?
It's got to be Eye of the Tiger.
Eye of the Tiger. Okay. Yeah. That always helps if you're not feeling particularly inspired or motivated, putting on that and just listening to it. It's a pretty good one. My go-to is I don't know why, but AC/DC, Back in Black. I just for some reason that song just puts me in the right mindset, man. Yeah. Okay, we talked a little bit about mindset, but I want to ask, from the standpoint of if you had to leave the listeners with one mindset here today, that was most impactful for them, what would that mindset be?
Growth. Growth.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this whole life is about growth, man. I mean, that's what we're here. Growth is everything, and not necessarily achievement, but it's growing past who you were yesterday, right? Like, what is the best version of myself today? And I talked about James Clear and Atomic Habits previously, but he talks about being 1% better today, right? Yeah. And it all becomes, what are my thoughts and what are my decisions that I'm making? And Chuck, this story, and many people here know my story, but like my dad passed away 10 years ago. And I remember the day my wife and I were just kind of talking about this because it's Father's Day, right? Yesterday was Father's Day. And, my dad passed away 10 years ago, and I'm going to kind of revisit the eulogy that I wrote for him every Father's Day, and his birthday's on Halloween, believe it or not. So I always go back to that. And one of the things that my dad always left with me was like, man, the decisions that you make, even though he didn't make the best decisions, even though I haven't made some of the best decisions, but your life is the result of decisions that you make. And if you can become a better decision maker and a faster decision maker with the right kind of filters, then you can put yourself in better positions, right? And I think that is what you talked about earlier, is how do you get yourself in a position to succeed, right? It's like, hey, I'm trying to lose weight. I'm trying to go work out. Okay, well then put your shoes out in the morning. Make it easy. Yeah. When you get out of bed, your shoes are right. Yeah. Right? Yeah. The alarm, right? My alarm is not next to my bed. It's in the bathroom. I have to get up out of bed at 5 a.m. every morning. And my wife probably hates it, but she's known for the last, 10 years that we've been together that like I'm getting up at 5 to 5:30, I mean, even we were in Virginia at this wedding, the rehearsal dinners the night before, we're out till midnight, which is not normal for us by any means. I woke up the next morning and I'm running the hill country of Virginia 6 miles up and down. That's just who I am, right? So making it easy, and that's the growth. I'm trying to just beat myself, who I was yesterday. I think that's fantastic.
It's cause and effect. It's like we've said before, the activity is what's going to produce the results. If you're not putting forth the effort, you're not going to see the result.
Okay, well, one thing that I'm curious about, Chuck, is, United States in an interesting spot right now. Ray Dalio talking a lot about, the changing world order, the real estate cycle. We've got a lot of things going on. It's easy not to feel confident out there in business and in real estate. Maybe what's one thing that you still don't feel confident about? Like, what are you battling on a regular basis? What are you building your confidence around right now?
Yeah. Well, I always try to just control what I could control and whatever happens. One of the things that to answer your question, I think I would say, am I doing, this is going to sound crazy, but am I doing all that I can? Mm-hmm. Am I being the best husband that I can? Am I being the best father that I can? Am I being the best leader at the real estate company, at the cannabis company? Am I still capable of doing everything that I want to do without being spread too thin.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Chuck, this has been powerful, man. Thank you for the candor. Thank you for the insights and the reminder that the strongest people lead within. If everybody wants to go grab the book, I've put the QR code up here. You can scan the QR code. You can find it on Amazon. You can go to your website, chuckcuda.com. It's plastered on the website. You can find the book. But Chuck, is there anyone else or anywhere else that someone should connect with you on this on finding more information about you or the book?
Just LinkedIn, and then the website. That's it.
Fantastic, man. Well, Chuck, thanks again for joining us today. Very excited about getting this message out. We had great questions, great viewership today. Really,
thank you, Logan. No, I really appreciate it, and appreciate being on. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and everybody that's listened to, 20, 25 shows and probably 500 over the years, Chuck's been a really big guiding light in my life. And as busy as he is and the businesses that he's running, if I call or text, he's taking me out to Flint Hills when he didn't have to. He's met with me at Oak Ridge when he didn't have to. I just appreciate that. It's not easy to come by. Go check out the book. You're going to be enlightened, you're going to be inspired, and you're going to hear stories from someone who has been at rock bottom, being able to build something up and just getting started. I mean, really. And I didn't even get to ask you, well, maybe last question. Okay. All right. Last question. What's next for Chuck Cuda, man? What's next? I mean, obviously the book, we want to get the message out, but what's got you fired up right now?
That's a good question. I think continuing to scale the cannabis company while still growing the real estate portfolio. I don't have anything in the purview right now to where I could say this is the next big thing. But if when it comes into focus, I'll definitely let you know.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate it, Chuck. It's been powerful.
Oh, actually, you know what, Logan? It just hit me. You know what the next big thing is? We're bringing back the Green Tie Gala next year.
Here we go.
Opus Charitable Foundation committed $1.75 million to pediatric cancer research over a 3-year time period. And it's the Dare to Dream initiative by Leukemia Lymphoma Society. They're raising $175 million. And I wanted to feel like it was meaningful. So I committed a whole 1%. So over the next, 12, 15 months, we're going to be raising about 1.2. We've already raised 550.
That's incredible, man. Fantastic. Well, everybody go connect with Chuck on LinkedIn, scan the QR code, get the book. I'm going to be plastering this all over the place, going out to the newsletter, and we're going to be getting the message out. Chuck, thanks for sharing your Monday morning with us. We very much appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
All right, it's just going to